Good morning, friends, and welcome to today's Cichlids Coffee. Today's coffee mug is a oldie but a goodie from my friends over at Wonder of Cichlids. Not sure if you can make out that image. Very nice image. Not sure what happened to Wonder of Cichlids, but they love that coffee cup. So hope you're all doing well today on a Saturday the 17th of August, and the year is flying by. And I see we have some great folks already on the chat, and I'm sure there are a few of you who are lurking and not chatting. So let's see here. DSGF, hi to you. Mexicali Fishkeeper in the house. Hey, Whip. AV and sound is good. Thank you, my friend. TA420NK, I am glad you are here. YouTube needs to adopt some better emoji. I agree. They're sometimes hard to access, too. Hey, Denny, one of my wonderful moderators, along with Whip, and keeping everything family friendly. Hey, Joe. Glass Cages, good to see you there, buddy. The other day I was thinking about it. Everywhere I look, except for the 29-gallon over in the corner, it's all glass cages in here, and we're all better for it. So good to see you there, Joe. And let's see what else we got going on here. William in the house. Krish's Epic YouTube channel. All right. What a great name. Jim's Fish in the house. All right. Hey, Tamara. If you're already gone, we miss you. Hey, Paul. Mickey's here. Mickey and Paul in the house. Z-Zip. Did I tell you? Hi, Z-Zip. And Angelo. And okay. Cunningham in the house. You love the t-shirt, I'm sure. I'm wearing a property of Cunningham Tropicals. I always got to catch myself because I always want to say Cunningham Cichlids. It just has such a nice ring to it. Very, very good. Greg's Catfish Cave. Love that name. Terry's in the house. Hello to you, Terry. All right. I'm going to talk a little bit about those 55-gallon tanks in an upcoming video. So you'll see me talk a little bit about those over at Glass Cages. So today's live stream, I'm going to talk about a few things. Aggression will be one topic, and something most fish keepers have to deal with at some point, unless they're dealing with extremely passive. I don't know, even a guppy, I guess, can get nippy, but I'm talking about the heavy duty kind of aggression that you get sometimes that can result in a lot of damage, fin damage, and possibly the elimination of a tank mate, to put it politely. And so we'll talk a little bit about that. I also have a little a mini rant for you that is actually more of a public service announcement. So we'll be getting into that as well. And thank you to all of you who watched my video on the hang-on back filter from my friends over at Higer. It's a very unique kind of hang-on back. The way it sits so high, and the design is kind of like a trickle, where it kind of you have this section and it holds the water, and then it overflows into a lower section, and then but I heard some of the concerns. Is it going to, what if the media gets blocked? It's just going to skim over the top and never really go through the media. Yeah, I get that. Was one of the concerns. It sat too high was one of the concerns. Some people didn't like the pump inside the aquarium. I get it. And we'll be doing a follow-up video on that hang-on back filter. It's currently still on that little 20-gallon rimless from Glass Cages, doing a great job. And this morning, if you remember, if you've seen the video, the overflow is like very obvious, right? It has like a little overflow tower. The water comes pouring in, and a pleco had worked his way up and was just sitting there in the stream of the hang on back. I thought it was kind of cute. So anyway, little albino pleco, actually a baby. Good news, my little red shrimp has shown up again. Disappears from time to time. Maybe it goes in one of the caves, but he was out again. Someone thinks it's an amano. It doesn't look. I mean, I'm going to take a closer look. It doesn't look like an amano. It doesn't have those little fans where they're gathering up stuff and pushing it towards their mouth. You know, I don't really see that going on. It looks like a little baby cherry shrimp, but we'll see. My little mystery shrimp. Nobody knows where he came from, and he just showed up one day. So, at any rate, some of the theory was that maybe he had come over like some eggs on a plant, but then someone pointed out that they're born alive, so that the shrimp are actually, little live shrimp come out of them. So I don't know. He is my mystery shrimp, and I hope he makes it. It's making me very tempted to do a shrimp tank because they are very, very cute. Very hard to get on camera because they're usually hiding or darting around, and they're very small. Just like the little embers. I have those little ember tetras in the 55-gallon. Teeny little reddish orange fish. And when they're up against the black substrate, they're just really hard to get on camera. What I'm probably going to do is I'm going to put some more of the gray rocky substrate that's on the right side of the planted tank. I'm just going to sprinkle some of that over the rest of the tank to create a little bit more of a pop on the fish, because the little embers, the teeny little neons I have in there, they more or less disappear against that black substrate. So always a work in progress. Hey, Jerry, good to see you, buddy. And thank you to all of you who watched my interview with Whip. I hope you enjoyed that interview. A little get acquainted with Whiplash. And I named the video 100 years. I didn't really check your age, Whip, but I just assumed that between us, there was probably 100 years of fish keeping experience. So, but the response to that video was good, and I like doing it, and I'm really glad you came by, Whip. Whip dropped off something, and let me show you here. He dropped off a baby female red terror, and you can see her right there. That's a photo I took this morning. Already showing some color in the fins, and this fish has a lot of potential. Let me see if I can enlarge her a little bit so you can see her. You can see the spots on the fins, and there she is, a little bit more enlarged. She's a cutie. She's in what Whip called the smallest tank I've ever seen. She's in a little 5-gallon holding tank, and which is serving as a quarantine. And she'll be in there for about a month. And then I might grow her out in the 90-gallon. I'm not going to put her in the 55 because she'd probably eat those little ember tetras. I'm definitely not going to put her in the tank with the baby plecos and the little shrimp, because she would have those as a treat. So I'll probably just try her in the 90 and see how she hangs in there, and go from there. But she is very cute, and let me show you. Let me show you what she's going to turn into, and that's going to put us into our topic. Take a look at this fish. Holy chimoli. Can you believe that? I mean, that's probably one of the most beautiful freshwater fish I've ever seen. It's a fish that I would probably put head to head with saltwater. And saltwater is, don't get me wrong, saltwater fish to fish is in a whole different class from freshwater. But this is a fish that I think could hold its own color-wise with saltwater. Absolutely gorgeous. So it's kind of amazing when you consider that this little cute little gray fish is going to turn into that. I mean, it's absolutely amazing. So fingers crossed that this one turns out as spectacular, and fingers crossed that she doesn't get destroyed in my attempts at getting her to breed with my male red terror. Another red terror that was provided to me by Whip, and an absolute stunning male, a total stud, and he's right behind the tank behind me. Very rugged. Doesn't matter what I can do. I can pull him out of the tank and play soccer with him and put him back in. Nothing bothers him. He's completely bulletproof, and just a great fish. And that kind of takes me into my topic today, which has to do with why are these fish that are so darn beautiful, why are they such jerks? And I'm sure you folks have your theories on why that is, and we'll definitely get into it. But first, let's do the, what do you say we just do the traditional start. Let's do it. There you go. So, as I mentioned earlier, this channel is partly sponsored by Cunningham Tropicals. And if you go to Cunningham Tropicals, use this code, 15% off on fish, ben.o.15, and ben.o.10 for 10% off on dry goods such as Cunningham Tropicals food, his own special blend. So definitely check out Josh. He is legit. He is the real deal. If you'd like to support the channel, when you go to Amazon, consider using the Amazon link. I'll show you here. Let me see if I can get it to come up. There you go. There's the Amazon link. You just put amazon.com/shop/ben.o.chart, one word. It takes you to Amazon just like you would normally, but anything you buy on Amazon gives a very small percentage credit to the channel. So consider doing that, because it will help. It will help out the channel. A couple more announcements and shout outs, and then we will be commercial free for the rest of today's live stream. A big shout out to my monthly Patreon supporters. You folks rock. It starts for as little as $3 a month. Those of you with asterisks near your by your name are in for a little more than that, and I appreciate it. But thank you so much to my garage gang for the ongoing monthly support. It helps in more ways than you know. Even though it's a small amount, it does add up and help me to do some of the crazy projects that I jump into sometimes. And last but not least, if you'd like to pick up some channel swag like coffee cups, mugs, sweatshirts, all kinds of stuff, check out the Teespring store and stock up. Winter's around the corner. Pick up a sweatshirt. Use the code livestream for a discount. Okay, there's a code there called Livestream you can use, and you can get a discount at my Teespring store. All this information is in the description under the video, under all of my videos. So, do you folks remember this fish? This was an OB that I had called Skittles. And just a gorgeous fish, a lot of blue, ended up with a lot of blue, a little bit of violet and purple in the body. Absolutely gorgeous. I had to take him to the local fish store. He had fish that were almost twice his size in the back corner of the aquarium. Just an absolute maniac. Now, why do you think these fish that are so beautiful are such major jerks? And Jerry, if you were asking about the red tear, that's the female red tear. The male red tear looks like the one that I have, which I think is also a beautiful fish. But the females are like off the hook. They're like insane beautiful. And they don't quite get as large as the males. I think they stay a little smaller, but when you see one, when you see an adult one, you're going to you're going to want one. You're going to want one, and no matter what it takes, you'll dedicate a tank to her. You'll do whatever it takes. So you'll fall under the spell. But you know, I have some theories on why this is the way it is. Why you get? I mean, look at this Salvini. Absolutely beautiful, but notorious within the fish keeping hobby as being just a real maniac. Now, I've been real lucky with my Salvini. She's mellow, and she kind of claims a small section of the tank and a cave. Nobody dares go in that cave. And as long as she has her territory and her cave, she's okay. Now, during feeding time, sometimes she'll get a little worked up, but it passes. So I've been kind of lucky. And one thing to keep in mind with fish aggression is that there are different temperaments, and you can get a vieja that's a killer. You can also get a vieja that's kind of mellow, like this one here. You can get Oscars that can be very mean and territorial and vicious, and you get big lumbering goofballs like this one, who just wants to eat and stare me down. So it is a little bit of a luck of the draw, and one of the reasons why I think I've ended up, in particular in the African cichlid tank, with a relatively peaceful setup, is because of my willingness to pull fish out that prove themselves to be complete jerks. I'll pull them out and rehome them, and not really hesitate much. I've tried the timeouts, I've tried the lower temperature, I've tried the feeding more, I've tried the low lights, I've tried to redecorate, rearrange. None of it works. A true jerk will go back to being a true jerk. So you have to have a willingness to remove the fish that's trying to be the alpha, or have the luck of the draw and get a mellow one, which in some cases it's been, in my case, a bit lucky. The ways that you can safeguard and just put the odds in your favor. Have the biggest tank you can have, because the battles are usually about territory. Would be one tip. And I know for some of you that's just not practical. You can't have a 7-8 foot tank, or even a 6 foot tank. That's not practical for some of you because of room, because of budget. I get it. So a large tank, good quality food, so that the fish are not, they're not hangry. They're not swimming around hangry, trying to digest fillers and junk that isn't providing any bioavailability, right? So provide good quality food so that they feel satiated and have some of the competitive edge taken off of them. I think that's important. Also, providing breaks in line of sight, such as these high plants. The purpose of these high plants are providing a place where a fish can go and tuck behind. Like sometimes the silver dollars will go behind that plant over there. Also the caves. The caves provide a place where a fish can go and kind of chill out and not be bothered for a little bit. So, those are some tips. But at the end of the day, if you have a real jerk, you may have to just go ahead and rehome that fish. Now, let's take a look here at, there are exceptions within the freshwater community, right? And I'm sure within the saltwater community, you get peaceful and you probably get a greater variety of crazy colored fish that are both peaceful and aggressive. But in the freshwater community, I have just seen the brightest, most popping fish tend to be some of the most colorful. Now, there are exceptions. I mean, look at this discus. Absolutely stunning. Eye-popping, beautiful, and pretty mellow. Now, some of you out there who keep discus might disagree. You might say, well, wait a minute. No, discus can actually be very hard on their tank mates. So those of you out there with discus keeping experience, if you want to chime in, let me know. I have heard from time to time that discus can get edgy and take out a fish, another discus that they think is competitive, keeping in mind that discus are, at the end of the day, they are cichlids, right? But absolutely stunning fish. And look at this guy. Crazy, crazy beautiful. So there's going to be exceptions to every rule, every theory. You're going to have exceptions. And these are probably some of the more beautiful, peaceful fish. Now, I think in some ways what happens in nature is these fish, and this is just my theory, right? These fish get a sort of warning system. So you'll get a female like this. You'll get a female red tear, and what this is doing is it's like warning other fish, approach, approach carefully. Same thing with the Salvini. It's almost like those African, are they called dart frogs? Because they used to use the poison on them to put on poisonous darts. Crazy beautiful. The first, who knows how many Amazonian natives saw one of those and had to pick one up because it was so beautiful and fell over dead until they learned, wait a minute, let's not mess with these frogs. But those colors are probably a warning that if you eat or touch this, you're going to suffer severely. And so it's kind of a good thing, I guess, kind of a warning system. So what do you think? Why do you think some of these most beautiful fish are so absolutely off the hook like this? It's just amazing to me. Including, and not limited to, OBs, and any fish that's an OB or albino, I have found they get all of this color explosion from being crossbred, and then they turn into absolute maniacs. So my experience with OBs, and someone did tell me one time, well, put about 5 or 6 OBs in a tank, and they'll keep each other busy. Maybe that's true. Maybe that's the case, because I've always had them like one at a time, and but I have usually ended up having to take them to the local fish store. Now you take an OB and you make it an albino, or you take something like an eye biter and you make it an OB, or you make it an albino. And it seems to me like it's just a powder keg, right? It's just you're creating a mix that is potentially deadly, in my opinion, just from my experience with OB, with mixes, crossbred fish, that especially with albinos. And mine certainly ended up at the pet store. Now, that sort of takes me into my rant a little bit, and it's not really a horrible rant, but it's just something that I think we all need to be aware of. Just something I came across, and like I said, I'm saying it more as a sort of public service announcement. This article appeared recently in a Florida newspaper. And what's happening is people are buying these fish and they're turning into aggressive killers. And instead of taking them back to the fish store, they're releasing them into the wild. And now you have a fish that's going to be just absolutely decimating other fish that are smaller, the fry of other fish. And granted, there are some fish like maybe a bass or fish like that would, a big striper would probably eat an OB like this, possibly. But it's never a good idea to release these fish into the wild, because if they start to move into a dominant position, like down in Florida, you have that issue with the plecos that are taking the slime coat and creating sores all over the bodies of the manatees who come in to get near the hot water vents. They'll actually come into fresh water. And so if it ever becomes illegal to have aquariums, it's going to be because of people that unthinkingly drop these kinds of fish, which turn out to be invasive species, and take over into the waterways. That's how they make a case against the importing of tropical fish, by pointing to you can catch Oscars. If you fish some of the creeks in Florida right now, you can catch red tiger Oscars. So there's a problem, and I wish that every fish store, and definitely your big box stores, just had a big sign in the fish department that said, under no circumstances release these fish into the local waterways. Just a big giant sign that says that, because I've never seen it, and I think too many people are doing it. So if you want some OBs, go do a little net fishing in the Florida creeks. You might pull a few OBs out. And I know there's a couple guys on YouTube who go and net fish. They go into sewers and creeks and all kinds of places with nets, and they pull all kinds of tropical fish out. Right? They'll find cories and cichlids and South and Central American and stuff that really has no business up here and is really shaking up the ecosystem. So anyway, just a short rant, and take it back to the fish store if it's not working out, or put it into a standalone aquarium, but please don't release it back into the waterway, because you have no idea what's going to occur. You have no idea what that delicate balance is. Are any of you ever see there's a great short documentary on what happened to Yellowstone after they removed the wolves, just an absolute classic documentary. Take a look at it. It's how the wolves changed Yellowstone, or changed the rivers of Yellowstone. I mean, it was crazy. It's crazy what happened after they removed them, because they were hurting some of the farms. And then it's crazy what happened when they put them back. So very often it sounds like a good idea, and then we discover that our messing with that eco balance was not a good idea. All right, so let's take a look at some of your theories. Like what are your theories on why some of the most colorful fish are the biggest jerks, and what's been your experience with that topic? Let's talk about that a little bit, and I'll throw up the chat here. I'm going to scroll back a little bit in the chat. Now, if you'd like for me to respond to a question, just put my name at the beginning of the question. That way it pops up on my chat. I'm seeing some of you do that. Good morning to you, Denny. I saw that. Tamara, I'm still here. All right. I am cruising the chat for questions. Jerry would like to see an interview with Josh on his food. I think if I did that, I would talk to Josh definitely about his food, but also about everything about his fish room. I mean, he's got a huge number of tanks. He's automated some of it, but he has to put a lot of time in there because he also has a full-time job. So it would be interesting to have a discussion on what life is like, and do a little bit of a deep dive on it. Josh, if you're up for it, and maybe you can come down here, I can go up there. Maybe we can do it after an OCA or something like that. What I'd be curious about would be, at what point, first of all, is it an objective to become a full-time fish sales organization and leave your full-time job? Or do you think that you'll always keep the dual role like that? I mean, that'd be kind of curious to me you look at someone like John and Lisa, who've gone all in, and now they sort of live and die on what happens in that fish business. So anyway, yeah, it would be an interesting conversation for sure. Josh, if you're up for it, let me know. I mean, we can do it. We can certainly do it the way that the way I did the conversation. I did this sort of, how sometimes they make music, and there'll be, one person is on the East Coast and one's on the West Coast, and they'll do their part, and then an engineer will pull it all together. That's how I did the interview with Cichlid Charmer, with David Cichlid, the Cichlid Charmer, and he answered questions. Then I filmed myself asking the questions, and then I spliced it all together. But I think it was a little bit more personalized, a little bit better to have us both in person, and maybe someday I'll do that with Cichlids Charmer. So let's see here. A passing wind. I have a brother-in-law that's his nickname, Passing Wind. All right. If you have a question for me, go ahead and ask, and be sure to put my name in front of the question. Midi Mac says we've even have problems up in Michigan with gobies and goldfish messing things up. Wow, that's interesting. Interesting. You know, down in Florida, they're paying people now. They're paying people to kill the plecos. So people will go out there, and because these plecos are getting like 20, 22 inches long and turning into just giant beasts and destroying some of the more, I mean, people come to this one area to watch and see the beautiful manatees in the hot water vents, and the manatees are just covered in these plecos. So you can go down there and pick them off, kind of like the wild boar hunters in Texas, right? They get paid a certain amount for how many boars they can kill. David Leach, a bass could easily eat. Absolutely. I saw a guy on YouTube the other day. He caught a 20-inch plus striper that could definitely have that OB as a snack. But in the meantime, how much damage is there going to be? I think the whole idea behind energetics, Piscean energetics, was the introduction of an invasive of a species that would eat. They put a species in the water that would eat the algae that was blocking the light, preventing its native fish from being able to spawn or do some story that I got from the owner of Piscean energetics. And then what happened is the species that they introduced, which is like a very small little, like a little shrimp, went nuts, and it started to create a problem where it was taking over the whole lake. And so then Piscean energetics worked something out with the government of Canada to go in there and just fish these little guys out. And we have, and it's a very nutritious supplement that it's a real nutritious food. And the way he processes it, he maximizes the nutrient content. So check out Piscean energetics. But that whole company started by an attempt at removing an invasive species from a lake up in Canada. Passing Wind says that in Miami, wow, used to swim in the creeks and would get creeped out because his feet would touch the top of the Oscars that were already there. Yep. That would be a little odd. Hey, CC Custom Leatherworks, I'm glad you're here, my friend. And yes, the replay is always available to you. You know, Jerry, I could get into that with them. I might ask them, and they're very much in communication with me, and asking Higer why that top compartment. It's almost a little bit like a trickle filter. It's also very leak proof. If you look at where hang-on back filters leak, they'll usually, if they're going to leak, they'll leak because you've blocked all of the overflow with media that is just completely overwhelmed, and they'll leak because of the connection between the motor, the pump, and the body of the hang-on back. Well, the pump is in the water, and if the media becomes completely and totally blocked, the water will just flow over the top and not really back up the top compartment. The top compartment will just keep overflowing. And even if you block the top compartment, it would simply pour out the front of the top compartment, which has an overflow section that's lower than the back. So it might have been an attempt at solving the possibility of a hang-on back leaking, but I'll ask them. I'll ask them what their thinking was. I mean, when you consider that little unit is taller than a massive 400 series Marineland, and probably 3 times as tall as a Phoenix hang-on back. So certainly the profile is going to be a problem. For some people aesthetically. So it might be a good question to ask them. And I have a contact there named Nicole. She responds to my emails right away. I'm still working on the review of the auto top off that uses optic, like a laser, to measure water. So when the water level drops, I think it may be either optic or electrical, that it completes a circuit and it runs the pump to move water from a tank into the sump. So I still need to do that review. An auto top off unit that is a lot more sophisticated than what I'm using right now, which is just a float system. So when the float gets down, it drips water into the sump. That's a manual, very foolproof, not a lot to go wrong. So there is that. So, but this one's electric, and you have to have a tank somewhere with water, and then you put a little pump in it. And when your water level in your sump goes, or your tank, you can use it for aquariums. If the water level goes below a certain level, it triggers the pump, and it starts slowly bringing water into the tank until that water level goes up again. So I've got one of those, and that's going to be my next Haiger review. This is more of the look of the old Haiger boxes. If you saw that hang-on back review, I talked about how much their packaging has improved. This is the way their packaging used to look. A very plain cardboard with something printed on it. But the packaging of that hang-on back is really nice. So you see here, this is a magnet that attaches to the side of the tank. That's a sensor. So it's a little magnet that holds it to the side of the tank. And here's the other side. Also a magnet, very strong magnet. And this is working with that sensor to measure water level. And then you have this little baby pump. Just a little baby pump that'll trickle water into the sump or into an aquarium. If you have an aquarium, let's say you have an open top aquarium that has an evaporation problem, it'll then run water down this line and top off your aquarium or your sump. So I need to get this in place before my son's wedding, because I'm going to be gone for about 5 days. And in a 5-day period, usually I will have topped off a sump at least once. All right. Let's see. Any more exciting comments? Whipswirl talking about hurricanes. Well, I think, wasn't there a hurricane that hit Imperial Tropicals one time? And some of his giant ponds were empty. So I'm sure some of those fish ended up in open fields and stuck in trees and whatever, but I'm sure some of those fish probably ended up in creeks and waterways, lakes. And so, yeah, you're right. You're right. Now, a lot of you under that Haiger hang-on back review were talking about the other types of hang-on back filters. A lot of you like the CCAM model. That's I think Fluval has one, and the pump is made by Seacam, or the Seacam, the pump is made by Shisei. There's several other hang-on backs. If you would like for me to do other hang-on back reviews, go ahead and list them in the chat, and I'll reach out to those companies and see if they're willing to have me do a review. Randy Rabbit in the house. Thank you, Randy, for asking for that like button. Michael, did I say hi to you? Michael Lotanero. Cunningham Tropical still in the house. Let me see. I am cruising the chat. Jorg Singh and Grand Modes. Not sure what that means. Randy Rabbit, I'm interested in cichlids. Never had them. Just listening and learning. Well, you've come to a good channel for that. But if you search my my playlists, you're going to find some of the more basic tips and some of the more basic things to avoid. Definitely do yourself a favor and do a little bit of research and get yourself as big a tank as you can afford. You have a variety of cichlids, from small cichlids like shellies all the way up to big beasts like trouts. And you have rock dwellers, which in my opinion I stopped mixing them with haps and peacocks. You have peacocks, which I have found to be beautiful but very aggressive. And the haps and the protomelis, which are stunning and in my opinion a little bit less aggressive, but a lot of information. Do some research first and save yourself a lot of heartache. By the way, one quick tip. My eye biter was starting to act a little crazy. The eye biter that I got from Josh over at Cunningham. Darting around, shaking and darting and going after fish and darting and shaking and just trying to assert himself. He's right in front of me right now. He's absolutely beautiful. He's like an electric blue, orange red on the dorsal, beautiful lining on the anal fin. Anyway, beautiful fish. And the way to curb that is I realized that he was guarding a pit at the back center of the aquarium. This is a pit that I think the trout has made it sometimes. Other fish have kind of claimed it, but now the eye biter was claiming this pit at the back center of the aquarium. So, there's no females in there, but you can always be hopeful. You can always dream. So one tip is this: if you see that going on, fill in the pit. Just get in there. If you've got something you can use as sort of a rake or something, just rake some substrate and level out the pit, and it will actually calm the fish down, because all of a sudden what they were protecting is gone. You can also take a large piece of decor, like a rock or a plant arrangement of some kind, and cover up the pit with decor. Now that doesn't mean they're not going to try and build a pit somewhere else. A pit might show up in the back corner, and then it'll all start over again. But just a quick tip: fill in the pits. They have nothing to protect now, nothing to fight over, and it tends to calm it down. After a water change, after any kind of new tank mates, things like that, heightened antagonism is common. It will calm down after the pecking order has reestablished itself, unless you've added a killer. If you've added a killer, it's not going to come down until he's killed his tank mates or her tank mates, depending on the fish. So just a tip, something to keep in mind. Cunningham Tropicals has dovai. I think those are fish. Those are the devil's cichlid. Oh. Michael, Ben, hello. I did say hello to you, right? And dovai are I think they will draw blood if they bite you. Compressiceps, yes. That's what I'm talking about. Compressiceps. TA420AK, if they make a title without the skimmer, I'm down. You know, I've had a couple people complain about that skimmer. Some of the Sun canister filters would come with skimmers. I've never used them. And I know they're very popular in the saltwater community for removing, you know, proteins and things like that. I've never used them. Just Fish wants to know what's a hardy plant. Well, you're talking to a notorious plant killer. And I am actually having success right now with plants. Granted, the aquarium has a plant-specific light, one of the Aquarium Co-op Easy Green LEDs. I do use some of the little caps that you put the root tabs. I also use the pump, the Easy Green pump fertilizer. But that being said, crypts that go in the substrate, crypts are good. Any of the crypts family. Your Anubias that you attach to wood with a little bit of super glue gel, or you wedge it into a crack in the wood. Anubias are very hardy. Don't need a lot of light, so you don't have to run your lights for a long time. They prefer to be in the shade. I think Anubias is the god of the shade or something from Egyptian mythology. But cribs, Anubias, hornwort, almost impossible to kill. You do have to cut it back a lot because it will get, it'll start to release little pine needles. But hornwort, hard to kill. So those are just some off the top. Jungle Val, my water doesn't seem to provide what Jungle Val really needs, but there's some jungle, and you might have the kind of water where Jungle Val you'll plant a little bit in a corner and it'll shoot out to the rest of your aquarium and you'll be covered in Jungle Val. So Jungle Val's good. So anybody else have tips for easy plants for Just Fish? And just provide the circumstances, right? So that your plant, provide the nutrients, provide enough light. Realize that initially there's going to be a little bit of a melt back. In other words, the plant might look like it's dying back a little bit while it gets established, and then it'll catch and start to. That's what happened with the crypts I have right now. They got a little thin. I cut back some of the stuff that was dying off, and now they're established and strong. So just work through that period. There's an overflow box whip that I actually meant to give you one, but I have one here that was from Tom's. But there's a company called Aesop. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. But they make, hold on one second. PF-800. PF-800. And you hang it on just like a hang-on back. But the motor ends up being the pump is inside of a tank underneath the aquarium. So you have to buy a pump, and you just run hoses up to it, and just watch a few videos on it so you get comfortable, and you can actually have best of both worlds. You can have an overflow box on a tank that isn't drilled. Yeah, Jorg, Sing, I've seen videos of people with blood after after a doveye has hung on to their finger. These little sweet looking chocolate fish, sweet name, right? Chocolate cichlid. Oh, adorable. They'll cut you. And I've heard that the Salvini have teeth. The other fish, the other fish might have a bony structure that will definitely hurt and alarm you, but not necessarily cut you like a vieja. There's some definitely some little boniness there in the mouth, but I don't think they'll cut you necessarily like an Oscar. An Oscar will hang on to your finger and startle the heck out of you, but not necessarily cut you, but can hurt you, right? They can actually bruise you because they have a very strong jaw. All right. Metsicali Fish Keeper, I wouldn't recommend CO2 to a beginner. Too much can go wrong. I have two CO2 units, and I haven't put them into action out of that concern. I mean, it's just, I don't feel like I have my wits all the way around it. And then I look at, Farmer or some of these plant specific channels on YouTube, and it's unbelievable what they're doing. And their secret weapon is always CO2. Just Fish, I love Sun. Yeah. Sun gets a bad rap. I've got one that's been running for years and years. Angelo gets love bites. Yep. Well, it's amazing how fast time goes by when you're having a good time. And it looks like we're already on the hour. Did I miss any super chats? If any of you super chatted and I missed it, that's a way for you folks to throw a little support at the channel. But you can also support by giving the video a thumbs up and by subscribing. Now, do check if you think you're subscribed. Check, because I've gotten reports from a couple people that have told me that they did not unsubscribe, but when they went and checked, they were unsubscribed to my channel. Now, when you ask YouTube about it, they just kind of shrug their shoulders and go, "Well, we didn't do it." So there's obviously some little creature that lives in the YouTube universe that goes around and unsubscribes people. So do check and make sure that you are still subscribed to the channel. And be sure to hit that notification bell. And yes, Denny, be sure to stop by the Ben.o.cichlid Facebook group. And you can also follow me on Instagram at ben.o.cichlid. Now, every fashion magazine in America is saying that the fashion accessory for your aquarium this year is a ben.o.cichlid sticker. And if you don't have a ben.o.cichlid sticker on your aquarium or on your stand, you are going to be considered very out of style. So if you would like a sticker, just write to me at ben.o.cichlid at gmail.com, and you too will be on the cutting edge of aquarium fashion. All right, my friends, you are the best. Thank you so much for tuning in. You know I love you. I'll see you next week at the same time, God willing, and the creek don't rise. And watch for my walkthrough and update on the fish room. And that'll be my next video and my review of the auto top-off unit. and maybe a follow-up on that hang-on back filter. All right? Thank you, everybody. You are the best, and I will talk to you all again at some other point in time. Let me go ahead and get that end screen up. There it is. Okay, my friends, enjoy the jazzy piano. Talk to you again soon. You rock. Don't forget. Bye-bye.